Hey everyone, it's Jack, and today I'm going to take a look at Rhino Linux. Moo. Wait a minute, rhinos don't moo, do they? There we go, that's better. Anyway, Rhino Linux is based on Ubuntu 23.4, I believe, and it is also a rolling release, which I find to be interesting, given that Ubuntu by nature is not a rolling release. That means that upgrades are probably quite seamless, given that it's a rolling release, and I like that, so that is very cool as well. And so I'm curious to see what this is like. It looks like it has some nice theming there, looking at the website. On their website, they state that Rhino Linux reinvents the Ubuntu experience as a rolling release distribution built on a stable desktop environment. Packstall is at the very heart of the distribution, providing essential packages such as the Linux kernel, Firefox, and distinctive Rhino Linux applications and theming. So how cool is that? They use same defaults. The XFCE desktop environment is used for its stable and rock-solid base. That's always good. And Packstall, our package manager of choice, they say, will always provide the latest software, even those unavailable in the Ubuntu repos and other custom XFCE configuration. And our custom XFCE configuration provides a unique and modern experience so that you can begin using your computer immediately. Excellent. So this is definitely worth looking at. I don't think I've ever taken a look at Rhino Linux before, so I really got to see this. It looks like it's got really nice theming in here. I like the purple accents everywhere, so it just looks really cool all the way around. I'm just going to go ahead and download the image here, load it in, and then let's check it out. All right, and here we are. We are in our boot up screen here for live. I'm just going to hit enter and let it boot into the live environment, and we'll check it out. Nice Rhino branding there. I like the animated theming. That kind of leaves a good impression right off the bat. And now we got our desktop loading in here, already looking good even before the background comes in. It looks like we got Plank over here on the left-hand side. That is nice. That's always adds a nice touch to XFCE. So here we got our Plank bar with our different things on here, including our U launcher. So that is nice to have too, right there, available. So you can just go ahead and type in a certain app like Thunar, and it'll bring it right up there on the menu. So nice filtering. And then we got our main menu here, and as you can see, it's kind of GNOME looking with the full screen menu and so forth. And then other apps like VS Code and so forth. So I like it. Let's just get right into the installer. I'm just going to double click this and launch the installer, and let's load it in and see how it looks. And it looks like we got the Calamares installer here. That's kind of refreshing too. I also like the fact that it's a rolling release. Very cool. I'm going to go ahead and just hit next, and then next again. All the defaults are good. And then here I'm going to go with erase disk and just let it erase everything and trash all my data. Swap the file. I'm cool with that. Then we'll give it a username here. And then password. Excellent. I'm going to just go ahead and hit next here. And then we should get a summary screen, and there it is. So you can see here with our summary, it's going to create a new partition, overwrite everything. And that's all good with me. I'm going to hit install now, and off we go. So this shouldn't take too long, and I'm just going to let it do its thing, install, and then when it's done, I'll be right back. Okay, we're all finished. That didn't take long. Restarting, and if everything went okay, then we'll have a login screen any second now, and I think it's about to come up. There it is. Excellent. So I'm just going to log in here, and I like the blur effect in the background too. That's a nice touch. Very nice. And there it comes popping into focus. Got our U launcher showing up. Excellent. And then here it looks like a welcome screen here for initial setup. I guess we got to maybe complete the setup here. So I'm just going to zoom in here using a cool plugin that Derek Taylor recommended in his last video. I like it. So let's hit start and see what we got. So here we can set up a color scheme for our system. And then here we got some choices of extra additions for our package manager. That's cool. I'm going to add Flatpak in here. And then he also gives you an option for the Flatpak beta channel, and I'm going to go with that too. I like it. And then snaps, those are always good. On a real install, I would probably go with a snap as well. But for the sake of the tutorial, we'll just move on. Nala installed by default, so definitely would go with that. I like Nala. That's kind of an improved version of the apt package manager on the console. I'm just going to go ahead and authenticate here, and then that should get us set up. So I like it. I'm going to authenticate again because it's going to remove this setup screen here. This is a one-time thing, I believe. I'm going to hit reboot now. It's going to reboot, and then we'll be back. I'm all rebooted. This time I put on some fancy leather boots. And there's that blur background. I like the blur effect. That's cool. I've never really seen that on an XFCE setup before, but I like it. And then up here, it looks like we got our power buttons right here in the upper left-hand corner. So that's kind of an unusual spot. And then here we got our desktop settings and our system settings available. And then our global menu, it looks like probably right there. When nothing's open, then we have these available, and then quick access to different directories through our file manager. And then over here on this side, we got our Cortile. So that's the tiling window manager. I think we saw that in the last review I did. And then networks. So here you got your network settings. That's under the extra icon space. Then we have our notifications, our volume control. So you can click on that and get easy access to the sliders here for your speaker and your mic. And then also easy access to our volume control center here. And then looks like our power settings. So if you want presentation mode, I usually check that because I don't really like going into the lock screen and all that. So presentation mode kind of avoids all the power settings. And then here we got our clock and our calendar. So when you click on the clock and date, then you can get easy access to a little pop-up calendar here, which can be handy if you need to scroll through some dates and reference some things. And then over here, of course, we got our plank bar showing the U-Launcher, our application grid, desktop switcher. That's cool too. So I can click that, and then we can see all our desktops. And then here we got our file manager, and we're running Thunar, and nice theming there. I like the purple icons. And then here you can see I put the file manager on desktop too. And so now I can just switch between desktops just using the desktop switcher. And now let's try, see, no HTOP here. I'm open up my terminal here. Let's look at NeoFetch real quick, and you can see we're running the Rhino Linux 2023.4 from the mainline Ubuntu with kernel 6.6.7, so that's quite up to date. Very nice. Bash 5.2.21 with the unicorn desktop environment, elementary icons. I'm going to try the Nala here. So I'm going to do a sudo Nala install HTOP, and then authenticate, and that'll install HTOP. And it is really a nice alternative to app. So and now we got it installed, and you can see our resource usage is really good. 594 megs of RAM. Very good. So if that's not efficient, I don't know what is. So looking very good. I'm just going to zoom on that a little bit with my handy plugin. And so that's easy to see there. I guess I could have done that earlier. And then we have our system here. This shows us our system info. So if we pop over here, we can see what type of board and chip we're running. Memory, 25 gigs assigned to this VM. Our GPU, kernel version, desktop, and OS, which is Rhino Linux 2023.4. And I just ran the updater here. So it looks like you have easy access to the updater also through that same app, which is nice. And I'm assuming since this is a rolling release, when the next release is out, then it'll automatically roll up to that as well. I'm assuming the next stable release, which is probably 2024.4. So I'm going to let that run. But we got a stable release with fairly up-to-date software thanks to the pack stall that's running on here as well. It looks like it's all done. It says there's nothing to do, so I guess it's happy. So I'll just move on from there. So we'll go ahead and exit out of there and moving on. Let's see what else we got. I'm just going to slide over here and let's open up our Thunar real quick. Actually, it is open, so I'm going to go into our desktop here, and I see that it's over on desktop too, so I'm going to just drag that up into one. Very nice and handy. And then I think all I got to do is just click on it. But what are these? Oh, it looks like we have some extra things up here in this as well. So there's our menu to get into different areas, our settings, accessories, development, graphics, internet, and all that. So very nice to have quick access to applications. So back here, I'm just going to click on the Thunar, and that should take us back to our desktop one. And there we go. So now we got Thunar moved back over into desktop one. Very good. And I keep thinking that's the menu. I guess I would probably have to move that because that's kind of confusing having the power right there, but that's all right. We got easy access to it in the Plank bar anyway. I'm going to just take a look at desktop settings real quick. And it doesn't look like that shortcut's actually taken us anywhere. So I guess I'd probably want to go through the application grid. So let's open that up real quick. And here we can see we got all kinds of access to everything here, even our different preferences. And then we have a second here, which only had one app on the second page. But let's see if we got GIMP. Nope, that's not installed. No Inkscape, which I didn't expect that to be actually. But it looks like we got a lot of the essentials on here, but just not too much. So it leaves us room to install things that we want to install. There's our Xterm, our U-Launcher, VS Codium, which is a fork of Visual Studio Code. So that's nice if you're a developer. Color profiles, appearance. Let's look at appearance since we have everything open here. And so by default, let's see what our default is. Looks like it's Yaru Purple Dark. And of course, we can change our accents just by selecting something else. There's Sage Dark, Viridian Dark, under Yaru, Yaru Sage, the light theme. And there's our red dark theme. I kind of like the dark themes. That's why I stick with the darks. But there's a purple light theme. Then we got our Prussian green dark. Lots of choices. So we can get a wide variety of accents here that I like. And sometimes that can be a tough choice. There's our Barb Dark and Graybird Dark. New Mix. New Mix is always a good one. And then we have our Edweda. And this is the dark version. And then, of course, I'm just going to go back to the Yaru Purple Dark because I really like the default there. And then these are all the different icons, and we're using Papyrus Dark by default. But as you can see, you can change your icons as well to all kinds of different styles here. Anything that might suit your taste, like Yaru Purple Dark. So that's more of what you would see in Ubuntu style. And then the Humanity Dark, which is more the traditional one for Ubuntu, I think. And then there's ePapyrus, where we were. Elementary, nice. Elementary always has some nice icons there. And of course, that's XFCE Darkest for Elementary, which probably changes something subtly there on the margin, probably. But I'm going to just go with ePapyrus Dark. I like the Papyrus. And then we have our font settings and our other settings, our appearance settings. So here you can do things like show images on buttons. Right now our buttons down there, the help and close button doesn't have any icons, but if I click that, now you can see a little help icon, question mark, and an X next to the close. And then show images and menus. That would actually show images next to your menu items, like up here, except not that menu, but menus and other apps, you would see the little icons. And so you can turn that off if you just like the default with no images, but I'm leaving it on. So let's go into our settings manager. So if we go into our application grid here and then go down to settings manager, which is right in, there's power manager. We got our pulse audio. So in our application grid here, let's take a look at some of the stuff here. We got our keyboard settings, light locker, panel, plank, power manager, pulse audio, lots of stuff here in our grid. So this is laid out really nice. Then we have our settings manager. And actually, there's something I want to go in because I want to show you some stuff in our session and startup. Actually, our session and startup is a separate item here too. So why not just go there? So I'm going to click session and startup. And then here you can see our different startup settings here. So if you want to turn applications on and off, we can do that right here in our auto start. For example, not everybody likes having the plank dock here. So if you're somebody that doesn't want the plank dock and you want to just theme it differently, this is an area where you can turn it off here from the startup and remove it. Same with the view launcher and so forth. Then here we got our current session settings, saved sessions, and advanced settings. Those I would probably just leave the way they are, but that's nice to have easy access to. And then we got our settings manager, of course, where I was before. So if we open that, then we kind of have access to all this other stuff like our appearance, our desktop settings, which we didn't get a chance to look at before, but there's a bunch of our backgrounds, which is nice. So we can change our default wallpaper if you like. And it looks like they got a little bit of a selection here. I like that. That's a cool one, the planet. And we have another one. Lots of nice artwork in here. And I like the color scheming too. And there's a nice one, kind of a gradient look. And then some XFCE default wallpapers as well. And this gradient one, that's a nice one there with the Rhino branding on it. And I might keep that one. I like that. Cool. And then if we scroll down here near the bottom, we got some extra settings here as well. I'm just going to stretch that out a little bit and bring that up. But here you can see we got our menu setting here as well as our icon settings. So we can add different icons like our home folder, easy access. We can turn on the trash, have that visible on the desktop, and also the file system and removable devices if you wish. And of course you can adjust the size and all that as well. And then here we can change the background and have that just slideshow through the different images every 10 minutes or so, depending on how you set it, which is nice. And another thing I want to show you, here's our different workspaces. You can also uncheck this apply to all workspaces. And then that way we can change the wallpaper to be individual for different workspaces. So if you wanted, for example, desktop 2 to have a different wallpaper, here you can see now that it has something different. So I can open up the desktop settings again here and change it to something yet different again, like maybe the planet thing in there. And then if I go into our desktop switcher, it's showing planets on all of them, but I don't think it actually put it on all of them, but the preview there I don't think is totally accurate, but we should have the planet here on 2. But if I go over here and click on 1, it should be back to the other one. There it is. So that's our gradient. So now we have a separate wallpaper between the two different desktops. And again, the preview is not accurate, but if I click back over here on 2, then we can see again that we're back on the planet wallpaper on desktop 2. So we can distinguish the two desktops, or 3 or 4. You can have different wallpapers on all of them. So that's kind of nice that you can have unique wallpapers and they give you that option for each desktop. That's one thing I like in XFCE is it's very versatile, especially when it comes to theming. So now I'm back to my desktop one again, and let's go back to all settings. And so you can see all the typical XFCE settings. Panel is always a good one. You can also access that just by right-clicking on the panel and selecting panel preferences. But here we got also appearance settings, and it's in dark mode by default. And here we can unlock the panel by checking that. We can just slide that to the bottom if you like the panel better at the bottom. And there's our logout button. And to me, that's kind of awkward in that position. So I would just right-click and select move and move that all the way maybe to the end. That's personally where I would prefer it, whether it's on the bottom or the top. And then here we got our items. So we could actually just trick this out to make it look just like a bottom bar that you might be more comfortable with in a traditional setting. So for example, we could select the Whisker menu here under our items tab, click add, then right click and select move and just drag it down. And it will drag without right clicking your mouse. And now we have our menu. Of course, I don't really like the default settings there on the Whisker menu. So I would just right click, go into properties. And then here we can just modify it a bit. I like the icons showing as icons. And then under appearance, I'm going to select position categories on left. That's the one I'm looking for. So if I select that, then that's more like what I'm comfortable with, having the categories over here. But I like the categories to change when I hover. So to do that, I'm going to select behavior and then switch categories by hovering. So I'm going to check that. Now when I come over here and hover over the categories, you can see that they're all changing. Nice. So that's coming together the way I like it. And I'm just going to, looks like I can't expand that for some reason. I don't know if something's changed in the Whisker menu or what, but it used to be you could drag that, just grab the ends there and drag it. But that doesn't seem to be the case anymore. So there must be another setting that you have to change manually. Then here we can add extra items into the Whisker menu that show up on top there, like the switch user option. And so those are different things that you can add or remove just by a checkbox. And then our search actions. But most of the stuff I do here is under general and appearance. And here you can back off the opacity a little bit. And then you got a little bit of transparency there. I just backed it off just a hair. And that gives it a little bit of a modern look. So that's another option you can do if you want to add a little transparency into your category menu there and give it a cool look. But I can't figure out why I can't stretch that. They must have changed something. I haven't been on XFCE in a while, so there must be some kind of update to the Whisker menu. So I'm going to have to investigate that in a little bit. And then if we go back into our properties here, let's see. Some other things we can look at under appearance. Under our profile, we got round picture for our icons. And then we can also change our icon designator there for the menu itself. So if you click on that, that'll give you some other choices. So maybe you want the Rhino logo instead to show your Whisker menu. So when you click that, now it is changed right there at the bottom on the panel there. So that's one way you can change your icon as well. So let's play around with some of our panel items. Let's modify this a little bit and make this where it would be comfortable for somebody maybe coming over from Windows where they like a more traditional layout. I'll just show you how to do that real quick. Here we got our app menu plugin. This is the plugin that is down here, and that shows you the global menu, I believe that is. So if you want to remove that, that is simple to remove. All you got to do is select it and then hit remove. And we can also add things in here. I just clicked add. And so, for example, we could add in our weather and just click add here. And then when we close it, our weather shows up down here in the lower right-hand corner. Everything new item shows up in the lower right by default. And then we can go to scroll box and then go down here and just select something like temperature. And then hit the plus button to add that in. And once you add that in, now you can see the temperature here showing the current temperature of 30 degrees Fahrenheit. Then you can also add in more items like wind speed and so forth, and they'll scroll back and forth. Personally, I just like having the temperature in there rather than the scrolling back and forth and all that. And in my opinion, one of the best apps, weather apps, is in XFCE. Here you can change the centigrade if you're more comfortable with centigrade. So that's a quick and painless way to change all of these. If you need to change your barometric pressure, wind speed, or any of that over to a different metric, there's where you can do it. Yes. Now, if we want to get rid of the plank bar here, like I said, some people don't like the plank. I like the plank bar, but if you're one that doesn't want the plank bar, we can right click here on the desktop or go into our Whisker menu. And I think it's maybe under system, and I still don't understand why I can't stretch that. It's got to be an update in Whisker menu, apparently. I don't know why they would remove that feature, actually. That seems kind of dumb. Even if there's a setting that you can tweak, doesn't make sense that they'd take that feature away. But anyway, under here, under System, or I'll just click the Settings button. That's easier. And then come over here to Startup, Session and Startup again. And if we go to application auto start, we can uncheck Plank. So that way the next time we start up and log in, Plank will not launch and we'll just have our menu instead. And of course, if we want to manually quit, then we can just press the control button, right click and select quit. And that'll take the Plank out of there right now without rebooting. You can always go back in and turn it back on right there just by checking those boxes again, and that'll bring Plank back the next time you log in. So now that we did that, we probably want to tweak our lower panel bar there to something more palatable. So let's go into our items menu, and first of all, let's remove the app menu plugin because that's actually kind of awkward when it's sitting down there at the bottom. And then we'll go to add, and we'll add something like, there's our app menu plugin, so we can add that in at any time in the future if you decide you want it back. But let's add some more stuff in here. So let's scroll down a little bit. First of all, I'm going to lock the panel. That way I don't accidentally move it around. And then we can add things in here too. So like Firefox, I just right-clicked on it and added it to panel. And then I can just drag it over and move it. And I can do the same thing with other apps as well. And I'm going to slide out of the way here so you can see the move menu. So again, I can go find something else like maybe the Thunar, the XFCE terminal here. I can right click again, select add to panel, and it shows up down here, right click, and here's the move. So just select move, and then we can drag it on over. And then let's put Thunar in there as well. So just jump up here, right click, add to panel, right click, select move. And again, once you select move, you don't have to hold the button down. It'll just follow your mouse cursor until you click it over there. Easy peasy. Nice. All right, so now it's looking more civilized. And here's our window manager tweaks too. So if we want to just give a little more bling to our open windows, we can select window manager tweaks, come over here to compositor. And then if you want some kind of effects, like when you're dragging the windows, if you want them to be more transparent, we can go down here to opacity of windows during move and maybe back that off just a little bit, about 10% roughly. And now when we drag a window around, it becomes transparent. Or you can make it really clear. But I like it right around 10% or so. And to me, that just gives it a nice subtle touch. And you can do that with other things too, like opacity of inactive windows or the window decoration, which is the top bar of the window. So if you want more transparency in that, you can drag it way over and make it transparent looking. So that's kind of a nice look if you into a transparent window decoration. And then of course, transparent pop-up windows and so forth. But those are the main ones I like, are the window decorations and opacity during move. And let's look at our workspaces. So here we can add and remove different workspaces. As you saw before, we have 4 workspaces by default, but we don't have access to them anymore without the Plank. So if I go in here to panel preferences again, or just add new items, that's easier. And that'll take us directly to the add new items area. And we can just add in our workspace switcher here. And this makes it a lot easier. Actually, I like it better than the one that was in the Plank there, because it's easier to work with. And so I'm going to move that over here to this side. And now we can simply just select our different workspaces and easily switch between them. So for me, that's kind of a nicer option than the one that was in the Plank bar. And then back here, we can also control the number of workspaces. So we can add more in here. You could put 8 or 9 or as many as you like, and they'll all show up here and you can just click them to your heart's content. Or you can go the opposite way. You can remove a bunch of workspaces. So we can just hit our minus button there and drop it down to, say, 2. And now you can just switch back and forth between 1 and 2. So very flexible there. So complete control of your workspaces and easy access there in the panel. And personally, that's where I like the workspace switcher. And then up here, again, right-click, select add new items, and then show desktop is another one I like, so I'm going to add that in there. And that one I like having right there all the way over to the far right. So I won't move that one actually. And then again, right click add new items. Let's see, what else can we put in here? How about the window? What do you call that? The window something, where we can show our applications, status, window buttons. That's it. I couldn't think of the name. So I'm going to click that, select add, and now you can see our open applications are showing up here. I'm going to right click, select move, and oops. I guess that doesn't work so good for our window buttons. So let's try that again. I can't do that. But I can do that in our add new items menu anyway. So I'll just jump back into our panel preferences and then go back to our items. Actually, the item menu I had open would probably work. But if we select items, then I can select the window buttons here. And then I can just use our arrow buttons here and just up arrow that and just move it all the way over near the separators there, I think is where I'd put it. Maybe in between. And then now we got our window buttons over in a more civilized area. And here you can turn off the button labels if you want just the icons. So that'll save some room. Or if you like the button labels, you can do that. Then you got your flat options, tooltips. So you can turn off your tooltips if you don't want it, and your handle if you don't want to see the handle. And then tooltips again, those will disappear. But I'm going to just check both of those because I don't mind the handle being there. It gives you a little bit of a reference. And button labels, personally, I kind of like those. Here's our sorting order. If you want to be able to move your window buttons around, then select none, allow drag and drop, and that'll let you drag these around so you can have them in a certain order if you like to switch those around. So that's how you do that if you want to be able to move those. And then we have things like group windows by application. So instead of having 2 or 3 instances showing up there, you can have them all grouped, which is, for some people, a nice option. So there you go there. So that's how you can tweak the bottom panel and just switch over to having a bottom panel with a comfortable environment. And that still bugs me that I can't resize this, though, because I want this taller, because you can see the system button is a little bit crowded there on the bottom. So I really got to go over and resize that. And I would like this wider too, so I can see 3 icons. Oh, there's our U launcher. I forgot about that. So we could add that to our panel as well. And then right click, select move, and move that down. So that'll give us easy access to our U launcher if you want that in there. So there you go, because that was kind of a nice feature. And here's our plank. So if you want to open that up, you can just type that in. Cool. So now let's do a sudo now, and let's install Inkscape. So let's do install Inkscape, just to give you another look at Nala here. And we want to make sure that Inkscape shows up in our menu and the theming looks all right and everything. So can hit yes and let that download. And again, we got that beautiful Nala interface there, graphics and the nice progress bar and all that. So that finished successfully. Cool. So let's go into our menu, and it should be under graphics, and there it is. So if I hit Inkscape, then we should have, I believe, the latest stable, which is from December 2022. And so here I could use one of the templates. I personally use the video template the most, the 720p, because I make thumbnails a lot. And so if we go in here, you can see that everything looks great. The theming is good, and this should be 1.22, I believe. And it is from December 2022. So that's the latest stable. And then no Office apps. I guess if I was going to install one, I would probably install LibreOffice probably. But again, like I was saying, that bugs me that I can't resize that. So I got to look again here one more time, right click, and then select our Whisker menu properties. And oh, there it is, right in plain sight. So we got menu width and menu height. So I think that's probably going to change it for us. So let me try changing that to 550. Just beef it up another 50 pixels. There we go. That's more the height I'm looking for. Cool. So even though you can't drag it anymore, it looks like you can adjust it anyway. And I'm going to just lower that opacity a little bit. Yeah, that's a little nicer. Cool. So let's make that wider now. So let's go from 450 to maybe 500. See if 50 pixels will do it. And then I'll come over here. And now I don't think that really changed anything. So make that a little wider. Come over here. Let's try maybe 550. And it still looks the same. Maybe I got to move and click. Let's try 800. Or 600, I mean. Oh, yes, that's better. So now we got 3. So it looks like 600 is a sweet spot. Excellent. And then if we want to make our icons bigger, like N small for the category. So everything just bumped up one size, one notch. But it looks like we got to make it a little bit wider. So let's do our height at 600 because the bigger icons, or actually 650, because the bigger icons is taking up more room. So that didn't change. Let me click up here into the other one. Okay, so I guess you got to click away from that field. I was kind of suspecting that before. So now it's higher, 650, and then same with, I think the width is okay though. So now we know how to adjust the size, even though they took away that other thing. But I'm glad there's a way to resize it still, even though you can't drag it. But one for the suggestion box, bring back the drag, because it's a lot easier just to resize it by dragging it as well. And I guess the last thing I would look at is this guy here, the tiling. And so if you enable that, then you can tile your windows. So now if I open up something else, you got Thunar tiled right next to that. So that's pretty handy. But if you go full screen though, with this tiler, I noticed that you kind of get messed up. So I try to avoid full screen because I end up just having to disable the tiler. But to be fair, I don't use this tiler really, so it could just be my own ignorance. So take what I say with a grain of salt. Yes. So there you go. I think that covers everything. And, well, here's my 2 cents. Rhino is really cool. I like this, actually. Even after I tweaked it with my own panel bar settings, whether it's this way or with the plank bar, I like it both ways. And I really like their unique styling, Rhino. And of course, we got the stability of Ubuntu with the added bonus that it's a rolling release, which I think is a double bonus. I like that. So would I actually use this? Sure, if I had a need to go back to a floating desktop and I wanted to run Ubuntu, this would be great. There were times that I've ran Ubuntu in the past because one thing that's handy with Ubuntu is there's certain softwares that are available on different websites that are Windows oriented, but they'll offer a Linux solution. And a lot of times the Linux versions of their downloadable files are in DEB format, which is Debian or Ubuntu format. So you can download the file and then just double click it and it'll install just like you would a Windows executable file. Of course, a lot of these files, if you're on Arch, are available in the Arch repos or AUR anyway. So a lot of times you really don't have to do that. But if you're in a position where you might have to do that for some specific proprietary or not common software, then sometimes it's handy to have a DEB-based package manager, which you would find in Ubuntu. And so that's another reason. And of course, if you already know your way around Windows, but you have family or friends that want to try out Linux and maybe they're new to it and they're coming over from Windows, then again, talking about transitions like I did in the last video, it's a nice transition distro where you could set it up to make it very friendly for somebody coming over from Windows or even Mac. And a lot of Mac users would probably relate to the plank bar if you dragged it to the bottom. So many, many options here. And of course, the stability is a big thing with Ubuntu. And like I said a minute ago, the rolling release aspect to it is definitely a bonus. With that, I give it a double thumbs up. And I hope this first look was helpful. And if it was, don't forget to leave that thumbs up. And if it wasn't helpful, leave 2 thumbs up. Double up. Also, don't forget to hit subscribe. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time.